Questions and comments? The honourable member for Nanaimo Cowichan.
Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the member from Hamilton East, Stony Creek. Over the couple of years, he was a seniors critic. I was fortunate enough to have him come to my riding, and I want to ask him a question specifically about something in my riding. My riding has been a resource-based riding. Forestry has taken a huge hit. I met with pensioners who were in their 70s and 80s, and they'd worked for a forestry company for a number of years, and all of a sudden it looked like that particular company was teetering on the brink of some severe financial difficulties. And they were very, very concerned about the health of their pension. I mean, these were men and women in their 70s and 80s. There was no hope for them to go back to work. And we saw that happen with Nortel here in Ottawa. And I wonder if the member could comment on what he sees as the importance of doubling CPP, as he so ably outlined, and what it would mean to the men and women in our country when the pension plans that they've paid into through their employer are suddenly under threat.
The honourable member for Hamilton East, Stony Creek.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the member for that question, because it's a very important one, because it's happening across the country. In every sector. We've had the things happening with Nortel. We've had problems with steel workers, a number of places in this country. And the reality is they can wake up one morning and have no pension. Some of the forestry places forgot the fact that this is workers' money. This is deferred wages. It's money that they said, we'll forego that next raise if you'll start giving us $1 or whatever an hour towards a pension plan so we can retire in dignity. And instead, in the case of Nortel, that money from Nortel, they had $6 billion in assets and $4 billion in cash, and they didn't pay long-term disability to people who are disabled. Their pension plan was wound up with a loss of 37%. In my riding, I had a man and woman who were both in their 80s, both had worked for Nortel. And in one day, they lost 37% of his pension and 37% of hers. So, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Things have to be done beyond what we're talking about today. There has to be pension insurance and a number of things that we can do.
Questions and comments? The honourable member for London Fanshawe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank my honourable colleague for his very kind words and his important contribution to this debate. He made reference to the fact that this government is working diligently to undercut the pensions of people in the public sector, the Air Canada employees in the private sector, and certainly Canada Post workers. And he made reference to defined benefits and defined contributions. And I wonder if he could explain to people the difference between those two kinds of plans.
The honourable member for Hamilton East, Stony Creek.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And those of us that handle these files tend to talk inside baseball. Defined benefit is very simple. You say to the employer, we'll set aside this money jointly. At the end of the day, when you get down to within about 5 years of your pension, you can calculate exactly what you'll get a month. If the market happened to take a downturn, the employer is responsible for making up the difference. Thus, you can count on whatever you are entitled to on a monthly basis. Defined contribution, the difference is quite simple. When you get to that point in time when you're taking your pension, if there's a downturn in the economy that takes 30% away or 40% like we saw recently, then you lose that money and the employer does not have to top it up. And you'll have employers saying that this unfunded liability, well, guess what? If they had been funding it in the good times as they should have been and no contribution holidays, it would be there and we wouldn't have the problem at Air Canada or Canada Post or the other American companies that are taking advantage of the situation across this country right now to put Canadian workers out on the streets.